My boss banned overtime to save money on his bonus. 3 weeks later he begged me to come back in and I told him no because of his own rule. I worked as a shift supervisor at a mid-sized logistics warehouse outside Columbus. We handled fulfillment for a few big retail clients, and one of them was massive, a home goods company that shipped almost half our daily volume. My manager was a guy named Dale. Dale had been chasing a regional director promotion for 2 years, and the only thing standing between him and that title was our labor budget. Overtime was eating into his numbers every single month, and corporate kept sending him spreadsheets with red numbers circled. So one Monday morning Dale called a meeting. He stood in front of the whole team with a printed memo in his hand and told us effective immediately there would be 0 overtime approved under any circumstances. Not 1 minute. He said if a shift wasn't finished by the clock-out time, employees needed to leave anyway because the company would rather miss a shipment than pay overtime. He said this like it was a badge of honor. He said efficiency starts with discipline. I raised my hand and asked him to clarify because our biggest clients contracted strict same-day cutoff times for order processing. If we didn't finish loading trucks by 7 p.m., the shipment missed the carrier pickup window entirely. Dale waved me off. He said, and I remember this exactly, the policy is the policy. If the work isn't done, it isn't done. We are not paying a single extra dollar for it. I asked one more time in front of everyone whether this applied even on nights when we were short-staffed or when a truck came in late. Dale looked annoyed. He said, quote, I don't care what the excuse is, when the clock hits 5 p.m. everyone clocks out, full stop, no exceptions. He actually said that in front of HR, who happened to be sitting in the back of the room taking notes for an unrelated audit. That was the moment I realized something. Dale had just created a written, verbal, and now HR documented policy that applied to every single employee in every situation without exception, and I intended to follow it exactly. For the next 2 weeks I did nothing wrong. I did everything right. When 5 p.m. hit I clocked out, my team clocked out. If a truck was half loaded we left it half loaded. If an order was 3 items short of being packed we left it 3 items short. I stopped staying late to fix small mistakes before they became big problems because fixing those things had always technically been unpaid extra effort I gave voluntarily. Not anymore. The policy was the policy. The first few days, nothing seemed to happen. Shipments were a little slower going out. Dale didn't seem to notice, or maybe he didn't care because his labor cost report for that week looked beautiful. He actually printed it out and taped it to the break room corkboard like a trophy. But on day 9 the home goods client called. Their weekly shipment, the one worth around $200,000 in fulfillment revenue alone, went out incomplete for the 3rd time that week. Their operations director wanted answers. Dale scrambled. He asked me directly what happened and I told him the truth. We ran out of time. Per his policy we clocked out at 5 and the shipment wasn't finished. Dale said, obviously I didn't mean for you to leave things unfinished. Use common sense. I told him common sense would have meant staying late and getting paid overtime, which was the exact thing he banned 2 weeks earlier in front of HR and the entire team. He tried to backpedal. He said something like, just this once, stay late, I'll figure out the pay later. I told him I couldn't do that because unpaid overtime is a labor law violation and I wasn't willing to put myself or my team at risk for wage theft, especially with HR already having a documented record of his exact words on that policy. Dale's face went pale. He knew exactly what I was doing, but he also knew he had no way out because he was the one who made the rule in a room full of witnesses with HR present. Over the following 2 weeks, the missed shipments piled up. The home goods client escalated the issue to their VP, who escalated it to our regional operations director, a woman named Carol who did not play games. Carol pulled the shipment logs, pulled the clock-in and clock-out records, and pulled the meeting notes HR had taken from that very first Monday. Everything matched. Every late shipment corresponded exactly to 5 p.m. clock-out with unfinished work sitting right there on the dock. Carol called a meeting with Dale. I wasn't in the room, but 2 people who were told me everything afterward. Carol slid the client complaint file across the table and asked Dale a very simple question. She asked him why a $200,000 per week client was suddenly missing shipments 3 times in a row, right after his new 0 overtime policy went into effect. Dale tried to explain that employees just needed to manage their time better. Carol reminded him that HR had a written record of him telling the entire team, quote, when the clock hits 5 p.m. everyone clocks out, full stop, no exceptions. She asked if that record was accurate. Dale had no way to deny it because it was documented, time-stamped, and witnessed by an HR representative who was still employed and available to confirm it. That same week, the home goods client threatened to pull their contract entirely and move their fulfillment business to a competitor. That contract represented close to $12 million a year in revenue for our facility. Corporate was not happy. Corporate was furious. 2 weeks after that, Dale was quietly moved out of his position. He wasn't fired outright, but he was reassigned to a smaller satellite location 2 hours away, a location everyone in the company knew was where careers went to disappear. His shot at regional director was gone. Someone else got that promotion instead, someone who actually understood that saving money on labor costs doesn't matter if you lose the client the labor was working for in the first place. A new manager came and named Priscilla, and one of her very first actions was reinstating limited overtime approval for critical shipment deadlines, with proper pay, properly documented, properly authorized. She actually pulled me aside during her first week and thanked me for following the previous policy so precisely, because it created a paper trail that made the entire situation completely clear to corporate. She said most people would have just quietly worked unpaid overtime to cover for a bad policy, and that would have let Dale keep hiding the real problem indefinitely. I told her I didn't do anything special, I just did exactly what I was told, nothing more and nothing less. She smiled and said that was exactly the point. The funny part is, Dale probably could have kept his job if he had just admitted his mistake early on and adjusted the policy after the first missed shipment. Instead he doubled down, blamed the team and tried to guilt people into unpaid labor to cover for his own decision. That single choice cost him his promotion, his reputation in the building, and very nearly cost the company its biggest client. 3 months later I heard through a former coworker that Dale was still at that small satellite location, still writing memos nobody read, still convinced somewhere deep down that the whole thing was somehow everyone else's fault except his own. Meanwhile our warehouse hit its best on-time shipment rate in company history that quarter, and the home goods client renewed their contract for another 3 years. Every time I walk past that break room corkboard now, I think about the printed labor report Dale taped up so proudly the week before everything fell apart. Someone eventually took it down. Nobody ever mentioned overtime bans again.